Congressman Tancredo, we have lots of folks with questions and comments, and let's just hustle right back to where we were with Phil. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jan.
Hi.
Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning.
Yesterday, Jan had a conversation, and I think he was getting a little soft-headed in regards to educating these illegals from predominantly from Mexico. And they go through our education system, let's say, for 12 years. And then all of a sudden they want to go to college, but most of them don't have the money to do it, so there's people wanting to send them to school on our nickel. I guess the only thing I'm also kind of concerned that we also hear from Jan that these or not just these individuals, but the average student cost the taxpayers of the state of Iowa in a way over $8,000 a year to educate them. If you take that times 12, it's cost us $96,000 a year to educate the illegal. What can we do to deal with something like this?
Well, there's only one way, and that is to, of course, reduce the number of people who are here as illegal aliens. And I've suggested how that can be done, and it is done through not rewarding them with jobs. And by the way, the costs of the bill that we were talking about, the Senate bill, were calculated by the Heritage Foundation, a guy by the name of Robert Rector, and he looked at all the costs, the social service benefits, the educational costs, the retirement privileges, social security, and the rest. And over the lifetime of the people who would be benefited, it would cost American taxpayers $2.4 trillion. That's with a T. And that's above and beyond all of the money contributed by these people to the tax system. And because you're talking about, for the most part, people who are very low income and very, very, of course, low skills. And so they will never contribute as much as it costs us to provide them with the infrastructure to be here. So there's only one way to deal with it. Because the court, by the way, has already established we have had a court challenge on this one with regard to providing K-12 education to illegal aliens, and they've ruled that states have to do that. Now, no court has ruled that they have to provide subsidized higher education to anybody who's here illegally. Some states have chosen to do it on their own. Some states just look the other way. And some states try their best to not provide it. But that's nothing that's guaranteed in the Constitution, I assure you, that anybody who's here illegally has a right to have a higher education paid for. And by the way, that's a lot more expensive than $8,000 a year.
Am I still on?
Yes.
Then I guess the only last question, and this isn't directed at you, but maybe you can answer it. How do the other people in Washington feel that we as American taxpayers can afford this? It doesn't make sense to me. Even to these soft-headed liberals, I think, where do they think this money's going to come from? Grow on the trees?
Well, it's a matter of for a lot of my colleagues. I hate to say this, but the issue is very short-sighted. They look at it in a very short-sighted way, I should say, and they are looking at what are the immediate gains for either me or my party. And, I've said this before. For Democrats, massive immigration, legal or illegal, provides a source of voters. They know it. For Republicans, massive immigration, both legal and illegal, provides a source of cheap labor. And those are very short-sighted goals, but because none of them look at what the real cost to the country will be. None of them care. It's just like, well, what about tomorrow? What about my race? What about getting this issue off of our plate so we can get on to getting reelected?
The specter of having this changed in a satisfactory way in the immediate future by the federal government seems to be pretty long. The odds are against that.
They are. And
so therefore, here's my question.
Okay.
Oklahoma decided to do this on their own.
Yeah.
They just passed, in both houses, both overwhelming majorities in Oklahoma, a bill, and it was just signed by the governor, a law that deals with four main topical areas. Dealing with identity theft, it terminates public assistance, all public assistance to illegals. It empowers state and local police to enforce federal immigration laws, and it punishes employers who knowingly hire illegal aliens. Passed overwhelmingly. If every state did that, will we even need a federal response?
No, we wouldn't. But
and would it be legal in every to do so, or could a federal judge or the Supreme Court nuke any of those reforms?
Well, some of them, yes, and some of them have been overturned by courts, but others have been upheld. So it depends upon the restriction itself. But because if the federal government has walked away from the issue, because they have essentially chickened out on this thing, that's why you see local governments doing this, picking it up and saying, okay, if the feds won't do it, we'll take care of it ourselves. And I say, God bless every single one of them that are going to try, because that even brings more pressure on the federal government to do what's right. We are always behind the curve. The Congress is always behind the curve, behind the public opinion, behind the nation in terms of these kinds of major shifts. But
do you think it's a legitimate role of government, I mean specifically of courts, federal or any other court, to be able to tell taxpayers at a state how they are going to spend their money for education?
No, I certainly don't.
If that's the case,
but look at the history here. Look at the precedent that many precedents have been set. It would be almost impossible to overturn that.
Why?
Just because, again, precedents.
All right, here's the other tactic would be to pass a law and remove their appellate jurisdiction.
Hey, I like that. Put that on the list. Are you listening in my office in Washington?
All right, this is Tom. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Jan.
Hi.
Congressman, just a hypothetical. If in the Republican primaries we were to splinter up the conservative vote enough where Rudy Giuliani would get the nod through the primary process and run up against Hillary, would you consider an independent third-party candidacy?
Well, I don't think so. It has come up before, and the thing is, I don't know what we can really gain by it, especially if you put that timeline in there that you just described. I mean, by the time that happened, the establishment of a third party trying to get on ballots in every single state, you cannot imagine how much time and effort that takes. You couldn't do it. You could not do it because it's a very laborious process. It takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So especially at that point in the process, it would be to no avail.
Okay. All right. Hey, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. Now, since you don't think the Senate can get its act together, you think states ought to do this. Do you think the state level should make these campaign issues, like you're making this a presidential issue?
Yeah, I do, and I've encouraged it. Every time I've gone into a state, states that have initiative process, I've encouraged people to put this on as an initiative, any of these things. States that don't, I encourage, of course, people to run for office based on these issues. Locally, I think you can do this. Believe me, you're talking about states, but look at Herndon, look at all of these other cities throughout the United States that have taken it on themselves at the municipal level, and said, people can't, in our city, people won't be able to rent to people who are here illegally.
We actually have a full-time employee here, though, working for the state of Iowa, who works for the Iowa Division of Latino Affairs, who goes around the state muscling and threatening local police officers out and jurisdictions out of enforcing immigration laws.
That's unfortunate, and it goes right along with what the Mexican consulates do. There are 40-some Mexican consulates in the United States, more than any other country in the world, and their purpose is to lobby and to do exactly what you've just described. They go in to local communities, to the police offices, to the
But the taxpayers are funding this guy.
This one is, yeah, exactly.
And we're paying him not to enforce our laws, and that directly has built the taxpayers here in the state of Iowa more than $100 million last year.
Now, Jan, how did you let this happen?
I was sick that day.
Yeah.
Congressman Tancredo, thank you for joining us. I thought we have this rule, by the way, this English-only rule. You lapsed into Spanish. I'm sorry, that's going to cost you big bucks. Thank you for joining us this morning. TeamTancredo.com.